Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Flinch, new movie out now on demand. I purchased it on iTunes. My main drive for wanting to see this film was singular. The only reason was because Tom Segura, stand-up comedian and podcast host, was in it. And, I'm a fan of Tom Segura, so, anytime he's in a movie, anytime any comic that I follow is in something, I try to see it. And I'm always looking for new movies to watch, so I got Flinch. And it's an interesting movie. It has some problems, but it's very interesting. It definitely has a feel and a voice. The director and writer, Cameron Van Hoy, I enjoy his style. And maybe if this is like an early film for him, be interesting to see what he does next. Because there are aspects of this film that are interesting. Has a super 80s feel. This has a very heavy synth soundtrack / score. A lot of the shots and scenes are a lot like action movies of the 80s. Even kind of the premise is a very similar type of a crime premise. The main character is like a hitman who seems to be paying off his father's debts with a criminal that, he used to work for. So it's kind of like the family business of hitmen crime stuff. And he lives with his mom in a little apartment, and she dreams of having a mansion on the beach, and her son's a hitman, and he's on a hit, and he's given a job, I should say, and the job is to take out this like businessman who's played by Tom Segura, but the main hook of this film is the assistant of Tom Segura, the female lead of this film, who during the hit kind of finds out. She tries to get away, and the hitman finds her. Spoilers, obviously, for this. It's a decent movie. So if you like kind of that 80s action kind of thriller type of movie, then you probably like this. It's got a lot of that. But the same things that those movies in the 80s had problems with, this movie has problems with also. It's just like, it's focused on things other than characters. But anyway, so now that's said, go watch it if that sounds like your jam, because I'm about to spoil some of it, give away some of the plots of this film. So during his kind of kidnapping of the assistant, because he doesn't want to kill her. She wasn't supposed to be there. She doesn't flinch when he points the gun at her or whatever. And it's this thing his dad always used to say, that if like somebody, if you're about to kill somebody and you point a gun at them and they don't flinch, then it means something. It means that they know more than they do. They're not worried. It means something. It's a very meaningful thing for a person faced with a gun in their face to not flinch. So because of that, he doesn't kill her. And he's got like this crush on her, which that's one of the problems with this film. Like, it relies a lot on this hitman's crush on this woman, his love for her. Which, considering the flinch aspect of it, I guess it makes sense, because it adds another layer of why he would be interested, more so than his initial interest. So, that's and kind of being in the world. And a second thing that would have made this film better, if, of course, the love story, if I bought that, if that was more believable, but also if this movie was actually set in the 80s, one, it would fit with the whole kind of aesthetic of the film. But I think it would have offered some interesting thing, but it's not. They all have smartphones and stuff like that. Part of smartphones are kind of used in the tracking down of certain people. But other than that, it should have been set in the 80s. Like, it would have been so much better if this was set in the 80s instead of modern day. Because having a modern day like story, but like just dipped in 80s. It felt off. Um, but so he's got this thing. He's trying to save this woman. Then you find out this woman's like part of the informants that are working with his bosses, right? Like, so she was like an inside person trying to get information on this businessman, uh, just as this other guy was sent to hit him. So there's kind of a thing there. But then you come to find out so he takes her home to his apartment with his mom, and his mom's freaking out. Like, there's some interesting scenes there, but still, like, it's so much like an 80s movie. It's like, why would you just have her tied up to your bed? Why would you, like, a lot of things is like, why are you just causing more problems for yourself? But then there's a twist towards the end of the film, not towards, kind of towards the end of the film, where you find out that she's like, some things happen. Like, he kidnaps her, she gets away, right? She gets free from him being tied up to his bed, and she goes back with one of her partners, her connects, called Connor, and Connor tries to kill her because she knows too much, right? And then, he saves her, the hitman saves her from Connor, and then you find out that she's a cop, right? Because she saves him, and now she gets the gun, and she points it at him. She's like, no, you're arrested. Even though you just saved my life, you're arrested. And then you find out, it goes through like this, kind of like this montage in a way, this flashback scenes, very similar like Reservoir Dogs, where you find out the undercover cop in that film, where it's like, where she first meets these other undercovers, like, are you sure you want to do this? It's the hard lifestyle. And then, like, you see like scenes of her around LA, kind of being told the information, her background story, and what her objectives are, but like a very low rate version of what Reservoir Dogs did, far better. But it felt like an homage to that. So at least like her being a cop explains her not flinching, the fact that, she feels like she's got some kind of protection behind her in some ways. But it doesn't, at the same time, does not at all explain why another undercover cop, like, she gets away from the criminal, right? She's picked up by an undercover cop, but then the undercover cop is going to kill her. Why would another undercover cop kill her? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they would just bring her back to a safe house, get her protected, get her, whatever they need to do, right? Since her covers, I don't know if her covers hadn't been blown yet. So, but the mission is done. The person that was sent to investigate is no longer alive, right? Then she was kidnapped. So it doesn't make any sense that Connor would try to kill her. There's nothing in this film that's like, oh, Connor's a bad guy, right? They're just undercover cops, unless he is, and maybe I missed that scene. But I mean, in the moment, it makes sense that he would want to kill her, because at that moment, you don't know that he's an undercover cop as well. You think that he's just a criminal, and she's a liability. So it makes sense in that moment. But as soon as you find out she's a cop, makes no sense. But it does explain why she's not flinching. And then it kind of goes back where it's like, oh, she's going to arrest him even though he just saved her life, which is like, made me not like her. And then there's this further scene where she gets got again, and he has to go save her again, and she ends up saving him, and it's like this. The end worked out okay. By the end of the film, it's like, okay, it works out fine. There's a few problems in the film, but overall, I enjoy it. It's just I never bought his affection for her. Like, and there's like a scene where they make out, which, if this wanted to go full 80s, it would have been like a gratuitous sex scene. There should have been more drugs in this film as well. It felt like a very slight kind of version of an 80s action thriller without like they should have just gone full 80s, and especially just make it set in the 80s, get rid of the smartphones, and kind of make it feel a little bit more 80s, and I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But it is what it is. Overall, enjoyed it. Tom Segura's performance I enjoyed, even though it was a lot smaller of a performance. I thought he was going to be a much bigger part of this film, but it was still good. It was still interesting, fun to see him as a bad guy, considering he has like bad guy tendencies deep down inside him, buried. Not really buried. They leak out all the time on Your Mom's House. But Flinch, decent movie. Interested to see what the director and writer Cameron Van Hoy does next. And it's just a few things tweaked in this film, and I would have liked it a lot more. But it was still fun. It was still kind of a fun, nostalgic kind of like, oh yeah, 80s. It's like a bad 80s action thriller made today. And it's, it was bad, but it could have been like they could have embraced that badness a little bit more and just put it over the top just a little bit more, and it would have been a little bit more fun. But check it out if you want. It's on demand. I don't know if it'll be streaming on any of the services soon, but not a bad movie to check out. Flinch. Get yourself 2 free audiobooks through Audible when you go through my link, inspireddisorder.com/audible. That's 2 free audiobooks just by going through my link, inspireddisorder.com/audible. If you stay with the service, you get a free book every month. Audible Originals also available, guided wellness programs, news, and so much more. But get yourself 2 free books because you're a listener of The Ray Taylor Show by going through inspireddisorder.com/audible and get yourself 2 free books. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/inspireddisorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!